Hi everyone, it's Martin from Garden Gnome Support, and welcome to our Pano2VR 101 Info Pop-Up webinar. Right, okay, as I say, I'm Martin, and this is basically a carry-on from our last webinar, but before I go any further, I just want to hand you over to Karen for the Q&A.
Hi everyone, it's great to have you here. Welcome to our new platform. If you've been with us before, we are now using Zoom, and we hope you are familiar with it. If not, just you can ask us a question if you're having issues. But if you're in general throughout the webinar, if you do have a question, we ask you to use the Q&A button. You can see on Martin's screen, we've got a big arrow pointing towards it. And so enter your questions there, and Martin will answer as much as he can. And please keep on topic. If a question is not on topic, we'll try to answer it, but we might not answer it during the live recording. Okay. So good luck, Martin. Looking forward to it.
And thank you very much, Karen. Right, okay. So let's go back to our a project we left last time. So here we go. This is where we got it. If we just have a little quick recap, I suppose. We opened it up. We added our nice little button that could do move to views that changed projection and things like that. But what this project also had in Node 2 was a hotspot for information. Now, because I've only got one point hotspot in here at the moment, which is for changing nodes, it's obviously showing wrong information. But just wanted to let you know that if we go to Node 2, this is for those guys that have, or for the people that have downloaded the project. In Node 2, you'll see that this hotspot, and we'll see that we've got already added to the project a title, and we've got some description text, and that's what the information hotspot is going to be picking up. Okay, so that's the project, and this webinar is all about really the text box and building this info pop-up. Now, an info pop-up is made from various elements. It's made from a rectangle, and it's made from text boxes. So I thought this is an ideal opportunity to talk about the text box and all its different properties and attributes. Right, so this is it. As you saw, I just clicked on this button here, which is draw text field. You can click it and add it. You can change its size and do whatever you want with it. And you'll probably start to see a common theme here with all of our elements, our skin elements. Under the properties, you'll see that it's got position, appearance, and rectangle. So anything with squares like rectangles, like actually the rectangle element or the text box, it's built from a rectangle. So therefore you can change these attributes. So take away or add the background color. We can change the border color, border width, etc., etc. Okay, so this is basically the standard text box. Right, so the text box itself, like all of the other elements, when you scroll down the properties, it will have a tab that's unique to that element, and the text box is no different. Here we have a text tab, and for here we have these attributes purely for the text box. You can see that we can enter text here. So hi, if I change that, you see the word hi appear. We actually have an add placeholder button, which I'll go into shortly. We can change the color of the text, as well as change certain attributes like text size and weight, so like bold and things like that. Okay, so that's some of the things there. We've also got the alignment, so we can have center, we can align left, align right, etc. Let's put it back to center, and then we have these other attributes. Right, so before I start talking about anything more to do with the text box, I want to talk about how we add text to it. Now, we can just add the text box to the skin, and you can just type in straight away whatever text you want it to display. Okay. Also, I think what I'll do is set its size. So let's make it 100 pixels wide by 20 pixels tall, and I'm going to anchor it top left by 10 pixels from the left and 10 pixels down. There you go. So that's the same sort of positioning that we had with the rectangle and the image element, etc. Or not the image element, the map and things, if you've seen past webinars. Okay, so that's that. What else do we want to do? Right, so we're talking about the text and how to get the text in there. We have another little button here that expands the text area if you wish to add more text, and it's actually pretty good. It gives you a big enough area to do this, where you can type it in. Okay, so that's one way, just directly typing text in. Another way of entering text is through the logic block. And the logic block is this little symbol here. And when I click it, it opens up a logic block window. So I could say, as an example, that if a tag contained the word courtyard, so I can't say it and type it at the same time, I could change that text to say I'm here. Okay, click OK, close and save, and we'll publish out. And okay, that's not working because we are at the courtyard. Why is that? So let's have a look. If we go to the user data, that's because I didn't put so we said tag, right? So let's put the tag in. Courtyard, there we go. So I've now got a tag. Oh, that's the wrong one, sorry. Let's put that in the first Pano. Right, so that's the tag courtyard, and let's publish this out. It says I'm here. I also put the tag into the second node, so it'll say I'm here. If we go into the third node where there's no tag, it goes back to what it was saying, hi. Okay, so that's using the logic block. So let's just select that. Now there's other triggers we can use for the logic block that you can use, but this is just purely a demonstration saying, look, the logic block allows you to actually input different text. Okay, so I'm going to delete that and take that out. Okay, so we go back to this. The other thing we can do is use placeholders. Now Pano2VR uses a lot of placeholders, and we have this little button here that's called insert placeholder. So what I could do is delete this and select, let's just say user data and user data title. And as soon as I've done that, what I've now done is built a text box to display the title of each panorama. That's of course if each panorama has user data. So if we have a look, if I scroll down, you'll see that I've selected the user data panel here. It says courtyard, this one is entrance, church one. And if I now publish this out, you'll see that it says entrance. If I change now, it says sorry, not entrance, courtyard entrance and church one, etc. So very, very quickly, we've actually just built ourselves a title text box, and all we did was add the text box and add the placeholder. Now you can also use the placeholders for other things, like as an example, we could, let's have a look, loading. Yeah, so let's do percentage. So this will now not only say the place, let's just make this a bit wider. I'll put a space in there as well and a little dash, there we go. So not only will it give you the title, but it's now going to show you the percentage of loaded. Okay, so when we open up this, you'll see it's gone straight to 100% because it's fairly quick. So if I open up the skin, and what I'm going to do is use the skin preview button, because that works a little bit slower, so you'll see that it works. So here you'll see that I've now got to 100% of loaded. So you can see a text box can do various things. We can use placeholders with it to show various information. We can get it to show user data, which is good for for your title. You can add description, and we can also use it. It's been used for we have a placeholder here, $HS, which is picking up the user data. Sorry, the title text of a point hotspot. So as we hover over it, it's telling me that the next hotspot is entrance. Now this text is dynamic because it's using this placeholder and it's picking up the title of the point hotspot. So if I was to spin it around, it will say back to courtyard. Okay, so the text box is quite a clever little element. It's far more to it. than what I think people give it credit for. Anyway, so that's adding text, adding placeholders to that to create the text in the text box. Now you can also add text to a text box. Let's just add another one. Here we go. You can by using an action. So as an example, I'm just going to add a rectangle. All right, so I'm going to use this as a button. And I'm going to give this rectangle the action of on mouse click, set a value, and this value will be the text I'm going to put it in there. So I can use this button here that will expand the value text input area, and it gives me now the opportunity to add more text. So when clicked, when clicked, I will add text. That's what that will say. And then we're going to set a target. Now the target is going to be this text box. So I want it to go into text box 1. Here we go. Let's close, save, and create the output. And when I click the button, when clicked, and you can see that we've added the text. Now, deliberate mistake here. The text box is static and the size of it is static as well. It's not moving. So this is the opportunity I wanted to take to show you these other attributes. So we have auto size. If I select auto size, okay, close, save, and let's see what it does. You'll see that it's shrunk down to just to show the text that's in there. So the default text is text, but when I click the button, it then expands out. It's going off the screen. Now, if I wanted to prevent that from happening, under the text box attribute, you can see where the text box then scales bigger. You'll see that it's scaling from the center and going out either direction. If I set this now to scale from the left, so it expands out to the right, okay, so let's do that, and boom, that's what we've got. So we can change the text and it goes across the screen. Okay, so that's the auto size attribute. I want to look at one more attribute and then I'll stop and ask for questions. But the other attribute will be the word wrap. All right, so if I put word wrap and auto size, what it's going to do, word wrap normally is associated, if you have a text box that's, in this case it's 100 pixels wide, when the text goes past or gets to 100 pixels, it's going to wrap around so it comes under itself. Now the text box is only 20 pixels high, so if I didn't have auto size selected, it would just run off the bottom of the screen. All right, so in actual fact, rather than just telling you what it will do, let me show you what it will do. So if I deselect auto hide, click save, if I click the button, when clicked, you'll see it's wrapping round, but we can't see what's coming out below it because there's no auto size of the box. If I set now the auto size of the text box, all right, click close, save, and create the output. When we click the button, it now expands to accommodate the new text. Okay, over to, as I said, we'll call in now to see if we've got any questions. So Karen, have we got any questions?
Hi, excuse me, we do. So Luke is asking if you could show vertical centering in the text box. Yeah, because he's saying mostly it doesn't work. So
right, okay.
Maybe you can show that.
I can't. I can't do it here because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But there is a CSS code that actually centers the text. So basically, if you had a line of text, it would be in the center, and as you've added two more, it would then get white. So it expands from the center and goes either side. I've actually answered a very similar question to this, or actually I've answered this question in both now the forum and the Facebook group, but it's a piece of CSS code that you put in and it controls the text. Without the CSS, the text starts top left, and yeah, and it works its way down, or we can expand the box from the bottom going upwards, but the text will either be at the top or the bottom. It won't be expanding from the center. But I do have it. It is in the forum. if people want to ask me about this afterwards, just send an email into support or check the forum out or the Facebook page. But it is in there. I forget what it's called now. It's funny because in my normal user account, because on my Mac I have a screencast account, which is what you're seeing now, and then I have my normal account. In my normal account I have a little box or a folder full of projects, but yeah, I really can't remember. I'm seeing Thomas typing something towards me now. Maybe we could add this as an option. Right, okay, all right, well perhaps we could add this as an option. So not only that, looks like I've got to write up a feature request as well. Okay, right, but yeah, in answer to that one, it can be done, but it's a little bit of CSS.
Yeah. Neil, so I think, Neil, your questions are a little bit beyond our Pano2VR 101 topic, but I'm just going to ask this question anyway, so people know. Can you use logic blocks to switch CSS classes? So can you target those CSS classes?
You can use a JavaScript action, so not a logic block, JavaScript action. Again, I've got a project on my desktop that does that. So you mouse click and you can change the class of a text box. And so, yeah, so if you have a separate style sheet, this is way beyond. So for those people that are new to this, please go and make a cup of tea and come back in 2 seconds. But basically, yeah, you can add a button with a go-to URL with a piece of JavaScript in there, and you can change the class or CSS class of a...
So you're going to show this later on anyway?
Not here, no.
Not here. Oh, okay. Oh, you mean like maybe next week in a
well, it's you know, it's CSS, it's advanced. This is like 101 for people to just start getting used to Pano2VR. Don't want to be throwing CSS and all that stuff at them just yet. So
right, yeah. Last week we had a webinar on CSS and using CSS. So if you want to get started with that, check out our webinars from last week.
But we also have a video that I covered using Google Fonts. And that looks at the CSS style sheet that comes with Pano2VR. If I just quickly show you, again, not going to get into any great detail, but here you can see the embedded style sheet, and this is what comes with Pano2VR. So this tells you the fonts and the sizes that we're going to be using by default. If you know what you're doing, you can go in there, change all that, and add different classes, and you can get different text box uses, different fonts, and blah, blah, blah. But as I say, that's not a 101 type webinar. So, okay.
Okay, so we have another question from Luke. Can a text box have a drop shadow?
Again, by CSS you can do that, yes. The old way of doing it before we could use CSS was literally having two text boxes stacked on top of each other, but 1 pixel offset. So one was a white text, the other was a black text box behind it, and your black text box was a 1 pixel to the left and down, and that gave you your drop shadow. But I will show you this website because it's really, really, really handy. If you just did CSS drop, there we go, drop shadow, it will take you to W3 Schools, and here it is. And this is really cool. So this is a box top drop shadow. So this is not the text. There is, if you search for top text drop shadow, it would do that as well. But basically, all I'm doing is going to copy that bit of code. All right. As I say, I'm just going to quickly do this. If we look at the CSS inner styles, actually, is it the inner one? Can't remember. Let's have a look. If we publish this, you've now got this drop shadow, and you can control how much and everything else by the CSS code in the in here. So if we have a look, it's saying that's why it was quite severe. It was 5 in text, so 5 pixels down, 10 pixels across, and you can also add some more to fade it out and all that sort of stuff. But that is, as I say, certainly not 101 stuff, but quite possible, quite easy, and you can really, really, style your text boxes, change the fonts, and do all of that. So that is totally possible, but not 101 stuff.
Yeah, I mean, at least if you're new to all of this stuff, you know you can go further. There's more. There's so you can a lot more can be done. Yeah,
absolutely. I will be covering basic HTML in this one,
cool.
Because it's that's not difficult to do. And again, it's easily searchable and easily, if you're not used to code or anything, which, you know, I think most photographers or most people aren't, that are on a 101 series anyway, it is very, very simple to add, and I'll explain why as and when I get there. But anyway.
Cool. We have another question from Thomas. Thanks, Thomas, for using the Q&A thing. Makes it easier. He's asking, is there a way to show internal values in a text box, like player width or is mobile and all that kind of stuff?
You could. I don't think you can do it straight off the cuff, because what I would do is use a logic block and literally give a value. So if let's have a look at the text box. So click
again,
on
this is also advanced.
Absolutely. But I mean, here you can see, for argument's sake, I've got player width, and I can put a value in there, and I can, you know, so if the text box is saying text at the moment, if the player width is, let's just say, you know, is I don't know, 300 pixels. So if I say if it's, you know, more than 300 pixels, say 300. If we were to, let's just preview this, it says 300. If I make the player width less than 300, it changes. So it's a bit fiddly. You can see the text, the actual width here. This is the great thing about the live preview. It actually tells you the window size, so you can test logic if you go in there. But yeah, so basically you can do it. But you can't do it directly as a value in the text box. All right, so yes, it's possible, but fiddly. And certainly not 101.
Yeah.
So on a text, so on a 101 webinar, we've answered more non-101 questions.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So if you have no idea what we're talking about and we're confusing you more, you can just erase this from your memory right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, okay,
right.
That's it for the questions right now. So you can, keep moving.
Right, okie dokie. Okay, so let's get back then to where we were. So we had this text box, and we've got this button that when we click the button, it adds text. It adds this text here. So I'm gonna copy and paste this because I want some more text to play with. So let's just do that a couple of times. And the reason why I want to do that is if we close, save, and create the output again, then when you click the button, I've got some more text here to play with. Now, what I wanted to show you is if I refresh the browser, you'll see that the text starts off with just saying text, and when we click the button, the text is moving downwards. All right. But what if you want it to move upwards? So go scale upwards. What you would do is just move the anchor point of the text box. So when it's anchored at the top, or top left or top right, whatever, it's anchored here, so the text box will come downwards. If I anchor it at, say, bottom middle, and we add text, this bit now is anchored, so the text box will expand upwards. Again, if I go into the live preview and click that, you'll see that doing it, and that is exactly the same as what it would do on the output as well. Okay, so we've got control of how the box expands. Does it expand top to bottom or bottom to top? We can expand it. If we don't select word wrap, we can expand the text box widthways as well. Okay, so that's some of the attributes there that we've seen. We can use a set value action to add text. You see that we can use a placeholder to pick text areas up from other areas of the project, say like the user data, and obviously for a point hotspot for the hotspot title. And in the case of the info text box that we're going to build in a second, we'll be picking up the information text from the hotspot as well. So if we click on go to properties, let's go back to the info hotspot, you'll see that we've got the description text here, which is great because that means you use the one hotspot and it can pick up different titles and different descriptions. So one hotspot works, so one hotspot template in the skin can display loads of different information. So the text box is that my favorite word is dynamic. It can pick up the text or change the text dynamically. Okay, so let's go back to the that's our project. Let's go back to the skim and have a look. Right, so that's all the anchoring and everything else we were going to do there. What I want to do now then is walk you through adding a information hotspot. Now, what we need is an information hotspot to click. And at the moment, as you see, I don't have one. So I'm just going to quickly add one. So I'm going to add a hotspot template, and I'm going to call this ht_info. And the reason for that is Pano2VR has already got pre-assigned hotspots. You can add your own custom ones, and you'll need to select them. But as an example, you'll see here that when you select the type info, we're automatically looking for ht_info. If I change that for something different, I could use the drop down and select it here, but I don't, so I won't. All right, so that's the reason why I'm using this particular ID of ht_info, because Pano2VR is already looking for it. Now, what I want to do is have these hotspots very similar to my hotspots to change nodes, so my node hotspots. So what I'm going to do is expand the tree, all right, and I'm going to select these two rectangles that we use to make the hotspot image, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command C, so it'll be Control C on the PC, and I'm going to paste them in here, all right. And now I'm going to add these as a child of my info hotspot. Okay, now when I select this, you'll see that we've got a problem, and it's telling me, and the only reason why it's telling me it's got a problem because these IDs are already used. I've got ht image dot, all right. I'm actually going to change these because these are now so info, so that's just telling me this is an ht image for the info, and this is an ht image dot for the info. All right, so that will then clear those warnings. We no longer have duplicated IDs. Okay, now the other thing I need to do with these two is, here is my hotspot template, but the images are over here, so I need to bring them over. And as I've already made them a child of this, all I need to do is, if I select both of those, the anchor point is in the center, so if I then change to 0, 0, that will perfectly align them for me. Okay, now with the I just want to swap these around as well, because you can see that we've got the dot at the top, and again, this is a good thing to bring back, and always remember really that the tree, the way the tree is structured, elements that are above are more forward. So as the dot is the center point and you want to see it, if I bring that above, you'll see that it now appears here. Now, because this is going to be for an info hotspot, I want to differentiate between a node hotspot here and an info hotspot here. I'm going to change the color of the dot. So again, I can just go to the rectangle part of the rectangle element and just change the color. I'm going to use the green. Now again, if you remember last time, we added a custom colored green when we were doing the point hotspot, so we could use that in other areas of the software of the skin, and I'm just using that same green here. So we've now got a green hotspot. Now I've added the point hotspot now with the two rectangles to make the image up. So let's create the output and have a look, and we now see that we've got this point hotspot which has got the preview image, and now we've got this new hotspot here that at the moment isn't doing a great deal. Okay, so what I want it to do as well is have, I'm just going to collapse the tree down to make it a little bit more easy to view, and I'm going to hide some of the elements that I don't really need to work on right now. So again, it declutters the skin. And what I want to do now is add a text box, strangely, as this is about text boxes. And the text box is going to be used, I'm going to park it on top there, for my, as I hover over the hotspot, to show the tooltip. Okay, so it tells me that this is an info text box. So I'm going to grab this text box and drag it on top of the info point hotspot, expand it so you can see it, and we're just going to call this, what should we call this, HT TT tooltip info. All right, so that's what that's going to be called. And again, as we've moved this, so it's a child element of the hotspot. If I set the anchor in for top middle to align its center, just set it to 0, and there we go. We're now aligned center. I'm happy with its position at the top. as it's set at the moment, if the text is long text, the text box will expand downwards, but it won't expand because I haven't set any of the attributes as yet. So it will just stay this size permanently. So I want it to display the point hotspot text on hover. So if I delete the text that's there, I can use the insert placeholder. I want it to work with hotspots and the hotspot title. So there is the placeholder that it automatically inserts. Close, save. Now this is going to be a little bit odd because it's going to be showing it straight away. All right, so it says information because it's picking up the information title there. Okay, so that's doing exactly what I want it to do. But I don't want it to be showing all the time. So what we're going to do is look at the text box's visible logic block. I'm going to deselect visible. I'm going to select the logic block, and I am going to say when the mouse is over the parent. It's important, the parent, because the text box is hidden, so I can't mouse over it because there's nothing to mouse over. But when I mouse over the point hotspot, which is there, when that is true, the visibility will be true. Okay, so let's save, close, export, go to that node, no text box, and it's there on hover. There we go. So that's now making a quick tooltip for our point hotspot. Right, so we now have a hotspot to open an info box. So again, I can hide the point hotspot, get rid of it. Actually, what I'm going to do is select it and move it down here for the second, just for placing it. Now, again, with a hotspot, because it's using a hotspot template, it doesn't matter where it is in the skin, all right? Because the hotspot template, again, is another placeholder to overlay whatever graphics or information I put in this onto the hotspot in the final output. All right, so it doesn't matter in the skin where I put this. I just want to get it out of the way so I don't accidentally do anything with it. And to emphasize that, I could just hide it. There you go. So it's no longer there for me to do anything stupid with. Okay, right. So I'm going to build this info box, and I'm going to build it with a rectangle. There it is. So there's the rectangle. Let's make it, I don't know, 300 pixels wide by, I don't know, 350 as a guess. There we go. So that's my rectangle. Let me think, what do I want to do with it? I want to change its name because I want to give it a more meaningful name. So let's just call this info pop-up. Here we go. And for the attributes of it, I don't really want the border, the black border, so I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to set its background color to black, and I'm going to use the alpha channel. The alpha channel is if it's translucent or opaque or whatever. So I'm going to set 255 it becomes a solid, and then so it's occupancy whatever. Yeah. So if I change that to 175, you'll see what's going to happen to it. It then becomes semi-translucent. There you go. All right. Okay, so that's my background, and where I want to anchor this into this skin, so I'm going to anchor its center and set that to 0, 0. All right. So that's where it's going to appear. So if we actually look at the preview, you'll see this is where it's going to appear in the skin, and because it's anchored center, it will always stay center. Okay. Now, I want two text boxes here. I want the first one to be my title. So I'm going to call this info title, and I'm going to make that a child of it. And then I'm going to want a text box. Here it is. And I'm going to want this one to be the info body text. Info body. And again, I'll make that a child of it. Okay, so let's look at the title one first. I'm going to set that to anchor it top center. Now don't forget, because it's now a child of this rectangle, all right, this means the anchoring position is relative to the rectangle. So the text box's position is now relative to the rectangle. So if I set that to 0, that makes it in the center. And if I say 10 pixels down, that does that. There we go. But its other attributes, what I want to change is I don't want a background. I certainly don't want a border, and I'm going to change its background text to white. Okay, so that's going to do that. All right, so that's that. I will do this. I know this is wrong, but I want to show you why I'm doing it in a second. And I'm going to set the text to display, okay, the hotspots title. All right, okay. Now let's do something similar with the body text. So here's the body text. I'm going to set, so it's anchored top middle. So if I go 0, and I'm going to make this, I don't know, 50 pixels down. So that's where I'm going to start my body text. I'm going to make this, I don't know, 250 wide. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to make this the same width, actually. I'm going to make this, was it 300 by, we said 350, didn't we? So 350. Okay. And what I'm going to do with this, he says, is I'm going to disable the background. I'm going to take away the border, because I don't really want that. And I'm going to change the text color to white. Okay, and I want this to pick up the hotspot description text. So again, use the placeholder. So hotspots description. So there's my placeholder in there. Now, one of the things we did here is we moved the text box down by 50 pixels. So theoretically, the height of the body text really just needs to be 300, and that makes it fit nicely. So if I close this, save, and let's just see how far we've got. Now, unfortunately, I can't preview these because the live preview, the skin live preview, doesn't work with point hotspots because they're a bit of a special element and they're off. And you can see now that when I hover over it, I'm getting the text. Now, the problem here is when I hover off the hotspot, it disappears. All right, so that's not particularly clever, because what I want to do is click this, show this information box, but I still want the text to be there. All right, so what I have to do is in the info hotspot, all right, I am going to say on mouse click, we are going to set the value, and we are going to be using the placeholder dollar, and that was going to be HS, and that is for the info title. All right, so that's info title. So what we're doing is when we click this hotspot, we're actually hard writing this text to the title text box. And what I need to do here now is just delete this. I don't need it. I was just showing you this because of, you know, the difference between using a placeholder to display text and actually setting the text. You know, using the placeholder, that text is only available when the mouse is over the hotspot. But using a set value, when the mouse is over the hotspot, that placeholder can pick the text up, but then on the set action, I'm actually physically setting that text to this text box. So now let's do the same for the body text. So I can just select this, keyboard shortcut for copy, keyboard shortcut for paste, and this time round we just change the body text. Here we go. So on click, these will be all the text boxes will be populated, and again I just need to delete that. And just to prove a point, because I can, let's just move over to the second node, and when I click the hotspot, click, that information then is all set. Now I'm using this, okay, I didn't change the placeholder on the body title. He says, oh, let's go to the info. Right, yeah, we go, didn't change it. So that needs to be HD for the hotspot description. So it's picking up the hotspot description text. Okay, so let's just go back, check that. Over to there and click that, and there we have it. Now obviously I haven't adjusted any of the attributes, so the text is going off the screen, but you can now see that on click we've got that working. Okay, right, now before I go any further, do we have any questions? Karen? Sorry, I didn't give you any notice. Do apologize.
No, you just moving right along there, huh? Yeah. Okay, so we have a few questions. Let's see. I think there were some that were answered in text. Yeah, so I think Dan had a good question going back about 10 minutes ago. He's asking, because you're using the same ID as the existing HT_info ID, does this replace what's actually built in?
No. This is obviously I'm starting a brand new skin. So therefore, right, okay. I think well, first and foremost, I need to understand the question. I'm using HT_info because this is already built in. All right. If I wanted to use a different one, as an example, if I was, _info_2, as an example, yeah. What I would need to do at that point is select it here. All right, so you can see I've got HT_info2. So then that would use that hotspot in the skin. So I theoretically could have two separate info hotspots, being completely two different builds, two different colors, two different graphics. So the actual hotspot graphics could be completely different, and then you could select which one of those you would use for whichever hotspot here. So for this hotspot, I could select 2, or if I leave it at HT_info, it would have used the one that that I originally built here. Before I changed its name. Now, if you're talking about using this with the default skins or the skins that come with Pano2VR, now all of these hotspots are already in there. So if you wanted to add your own info hotspot, you would need to call it HT_info_ whatever you wanted, or change the name completely, doesn't matter, but you would then select it from your drop down list here to make sure that you use it for that particular hotspot. I think that should cover that question.
Yeah, I think it does. It's clear to me.
Like mine. Good.
Neil's got a question. Can images or a button or any other items, can they be added to the text boxes, to the text fields?
Yep. You would just add a button as a child of it. So if I wanted to, I could grab a...
And I think you covered this actually in an older webinar, right?
Right, okay. But yeah, for body text, see there it is. I could position that there. And if I made that a child of the body text, again, the anchoring would then become part of that. So that's there. So yeah, if we did that and have a look, preview, there is that text. So that's a rectangle. It could have been a button, and it's now inside the body text. All right, so yes, you can. Right.
Yeah, and Francesca is asking, if there can be a webinar about this topic, and that's what there's a really great webinar that Martin did a few weeks ago with dealing with hotspots and popping up info boxes with images and text and everything else. I'll try and find that for you and put it in the chat.
All right, okay. So, any more?
Oh, yes. We have a few. Okay. Yep. So Thomas is asking, so when you're working with the client, right, what's the best way to make those text boxes configurable? So, knowing the content and then trying to deal with the layout. So that's the context, right? The hotspots IDs will be node 1, node 2, etc. So the client could easily identify every hotspot's ID. So trying to get the client involved in the design, what's a good way to do this, to configure this?
Right. Okay. First thoughts, again, it's understanding the question really. Is this before or after the panorama has been posted to the internet? Because we do have something, Thomas, and I say Thomas and I, but that's really sort of bigging myself up there really. Thomas did and I watched is more the reality, is, have a little text box, so a plain TXT doc, and then you can type whatever text you want and as long as it's in the input folder, the text boxes will display that text, so you can externally change the text. You could also, if you know what you're doing, open up the XML file remotely, find the text that you want, and alter the edit the XML file directly, or the skin file, sorry, directly. If it's for hotspots, then it's in the XML, but if it's anything to do with the skin, then it's the skin.js file. Again, that's far too deep for a 101. It can be done. There is various ways of doing it, as you've just heard. But if you're talking about collaborating, like as you're building it, then all I would say is just to the customer, or if you were, I would build a rough version of your tour, put it online, give the customer a link, and say, right, here is this. I would put the copy button in. That we do have a copy button component, or you can just get your customer to screenshot. So if they go to a node, screenshot it, they could say, I want a hotspot there, and give you the text, send it back to you, and then you just add the hotspot and text. And if they've typed it up, you can literally copy and paste it directly into the skin. So or to the point hotspot. So that question is a little bit is it before or after the build? But in either case, it's doable. So
okay, cool. Yeah, and I think, and just to add to it, I mean, it also depends, really on your certain workflow, I guess, and how you're collaborating with the client in that case. Yeah, but so Neil has a question for dealing with if you could go to a logic block. He's asking for a feature, but I think we can do this. So he says feature idea on the logic block to have a drop down for the placeholder similar to the text field.
Hang on, sorry, say that again. I didn't get that.
Okay, so this is Neil. This feature is going to be added in version 7, I think. So in the logic block to have a drop down for a certain placeholder that.
Oh, I see. So, right, okay. So if you add a text box, and then we've got right, okay.
Oh, or maybe it's already in there.
Context menu with placeholders. I think that's going to be a version 7 thing, to be fair. I do believe in version 7 we're actually adding where we've got the insert placeholder button in the text field. We've got these appearing now within the logic block, because you can use a placeholder as a trigger as well as a placeholder as an output, so you can compare two placeholders together. So it's this was used. If you go to the forum, we have a password component where you can password lock your panoramas, and how that works is you type in a password, and that adds it to to somewhere in the software. I'm not going to say where, because it's complicated. So it adds it into the software, and then we can compare the two. And if the person using the panorama types in the right thing, it unlocks it and lets it go. But I'm saying things and everything else. I'm being really vague because I need to be vague, because this is 101. I don't want to start talking about anything other than what we're covering now, because it will just complicate things, and I don't want to do that, because this subject isn't that complicated, so I don't really want to make it complicated. So
yeah, okay. Well, in any case, this is planned for version 7.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for this particular feature. Okay, I think that's it for the questions, and we can you can go ahead.
Right, okay, excellent. Right, so carrying on then. We've got our hotspot that when we click it, we add text to our two text boxes, our info body and info title. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hide the info pop-up rectangle. So this is the pop-up, the info pop-up thing itself. I'm hiding that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go mouse click, visible or visibility, show element, and that will be info pop-up. All right, so where is it? Yeah, all right, so info pop-up. So now when I close, save, let's create the output. We have no pop-up. When we click here, go to the info pop-up here, it tells me it's an information hotspot. When I click it, we get the info pop-up pop-up. Okay, so what I need to do now, obviously, is add a close button to this. So again, I'm going to grab a text box. Very versatile, these text boxes. And I'm going to stick it here, make it a child of the pop-up info, and I'm going to drag it into, so it's a child of it. And I'm just going to call this button close info. And I'm going to anchor that so it's tight against the edge. I don't have to make it very wide, so let's make it 50 pixels. I'm just going to say close. That's all it needs to display. I'm going to remove the background. I will give it the hand cursor because it's going to be a button. When I hover over it, I want the user to see interaction. So, and the cursor changes to a hand, they know it's interactive. I'm going to remove the border so we don't have any border around it, and I'm going to change the text to white. Okay, now I'm going to give this button an action, and that action is going to be on click, visibility. I don't want to show anything, I want to hide. Now we've got targets. Now obviously I want to hide info pop-up, but this is a child element of this, of the info pop-up. So I want to hide the parent. Okay, so that's, it can be any ID it wants, as long as it's the parent, it will hide it. Okay, cool. So let's just test that. Create the output, go to the node, let's click our info hotspot. There it is. Hover over the close button, you can see the hand interaction, and when I click it, it disappears. Magic. Right. What else would I do with this? Right, to tidy this up, on the close button, I would delete any text in here. And the reason being that if you've got a slow internet connection and some of the old browsers, what used to happen is if you opened up an info box and then closed it and opened up another info box, it's quite possible that the browser cached the old text before it was updated. Now, I would probably hand on heart say that 100% of the time that's not going to happen. But I like to, you know, cross all T's, dot all I's, as they say. So what I would do here is I would create one action that would say on mouse click, set value, leave it blank to the info title. Okay, I can again select it, copy and paste, and also do that for the info body. All right, so what I've done there is on the mouse click for the hotspot, we're setting all the text, and then when we close the info box, not only are we hiding the rectangle, but we're actually unloading all of that text. So if we now go to another point hotspot with entirely new title and new text, when we click the hotspot, that's all you see straight away. So there's no residual if the internet connection is slow or you're using some funky browser that's, you know, not very good. So it's making the experience a little bit better. Okay, right, now where we're at with this, we should have everything working as is except for the text itself, the body text. So you can see that it's not been set for anything, so we're just expanding widthways. So we're going to go to the body text attributes. I want this to start at the left. All right, I want this to word wrap. I don't want it to go off the screen, and I don't want it to auto size. Okay, because I don't want this getting any bigger than the surrounding rectangle, its background. Okay, so let's just have a look at this and see what this is going to do. Okay, the text is a bit tight to the edge and it's running off the bottom. Right, okay, that's not a problem. What we can do is go to the body text box, and I'm now going to select the scroll bar. Here we go, and that's exactly what it's going to do. So if we go back to it and have a look, open up the info box, we've now got a little scroll bar that we can see. Now, the only thing that I think looks a bit ugly is that the text is too tight to the sides and obviously tight at the bottom. You could, if we go back to the pop-up, you could make the text box a few pixels smaller to stop that. But but we've also have this padding. Now they're linked together. I could say, right, 5 pixels padding all the way around. I could even, deselect linked values. So from top and bottom, let's have 10. So it's a little bit more at the tops and the bottoms. So now when we have a look at it and have a look at our text box, we've got this padding on the side, and we can come up a little bit more, and that makes it really nice. Okay, all right, so that's our pop-up sort of built. But I did say what I wanted to do is have a look at some basic HTML coding. And what I'm going to do with that is, if we have a look at our info title, here we go, gone too quick. You can see that if I deselect default, I can increase its size. So let's just put auto size on, because what happens is let's turn it off. If I increase its size too much and we have a look at this, you'll see what happens. You'll see that it's clipping it, because we've made the text bigger but not the text box. It's clipped the text. All right, so if you're going to be doing this, playing with the attributes and the size and everything else, I would strongly recommend using the auto size. So this text box will now expand with it. All right, so we can give it a bigger text size, and we can make it bold. All right, so when we have a look at this, go back, we've now got back quite bold, and yeah, we've got our text. So that's quite cool. Now this works because we have 2 separate text boxes. All right, so I can add the attributes to one and not to the other. But what happens if you have one text box and you want to add these attributes to a bit of the text and not to some of the others? Well, this is where this HTML coding comes in. And if we go to the internet and just type in HTML formatting, spelled that wrong, never mind. You'll see that we've got some basic things here, like these brackets will give you bold, these will give you italics, etc. Right, so if I just minimize that for the second, and we'll have a look at this. So here's I'll do that again, right, so text box, add that. Right, so here it says the word text. Let's just copy and paste that a couple of times and make that a bit wider so we can see all of the text. All right, in there. I'm not worried about what the text is. I just want to show you what the overall effect is. So again, I'm doing it separately so we can use the preview as well, so you can see what's actually happening. In fact, with the live preview running, we can see exactly what's happening as and when we change things. So if I expand this area so I can get to the text box. Now, not forgetting, I'm using a single text element. I could add this bold, so we just do brackets either side and say B, and then we have to close this with brackets either side and /B, and you can see here we've instantly made that bold, that text bold. We could use a very similar thing, but this time we use I for italics, and again close it, bring it over, I, and we've now made this into italics. All right. Oh, because I accidentally put the wrong thing in there, you see it's actually carried it on. That should have been I and not 1. There we go. And now the bottom text box is still good. We've got italics and we've got bold. So you can start to see that you can, within the single text box, you can actually add these HTML attributes there. Now there's quite a few of them. I would recommend exploring them, because there's other attributes where you could, using a similar sort of layout, where you could actually add a hyperlink. So if you wanted a hyperlink in your text, you can add one. If we go back to this website, he says, let's have a look and get rid of the preview. There it is. You've got attributes, here we go. So here is, you just copy and paste that, type in your web address and give it the name, and that would then appear in the text box. So let's just do that. If I copied that, I'm going to close this now because I'm sort of pretty much to the end of this, and I pasted that in here. You'll see that if I now open this up, we've now got this web link that will open up their website. Okay, so that's some basic HTML formatting. That's not CSS or using style sheets or anything really complicated. This is some really basic stuff. That's, it's easy to find. It's just copy and paste. You've just seen me do it, but it gives you your text box that little bit more oomph. Yeah. So we've got our attributes within the text element itself here, so we can change, size, weight, etc. But also you can then start to use. So brackets U, for argument's sake, would be underlined, so you can underline text. But yeah, please check out that website. It's got lots of useful things to make your text boxes look that little bit different. Anyway, I think that's me. I think that's the end of it. I'll throw it over to Karen one more time to see if we've got any more questions, but I do think, that's the hour. But yeah, over to Karen. What we got?
Hey, we don't have any questions, but there's one thing that I want to clarify from our last Q&A break. And that was the question from Neil asking if we can have a drop down for the placeholders, like something that we have for the text field. And I have to admit, I was a little confused by the question. And but this is already in your Pano2VR right now in 6.1.9. It's been in there since 6.1.1 or 6.1. Is if you open up a logic block and and if the value is a text or something, like if you go into value and you right click, you'll get the not into value.
Into value.
Yeah, well, you have to add a thing there.
Yeah. So if I go player, so if we just say player width, is less than 500.
No, text. If it's a text.
Text. This is a text box. So what's I don't know.
Okay. And right click.
Use data. So if I was to do user data, description. I don't know. I'm
right click right here. Right click.
Yeah, I'm not following. I don't understand the question, so okay. I can't.
Anyway, there's so you can pull up the placeholders right there.
Right. Okay, I've got Chief Gnome say to me, click it first, then right button click.
Yeah, so here's a little Easter egg. You can find all the placeholders right there, and yep.
Yeah. And
that's it for there. And just like for the text field, there's also the placeholder drop down. So there's a little thing in there. Yeah. That's all I wanted to cover. And in the meantime, we have one other question. Neil has a good question. What does the evaluate checkbox do?
Now, I went to Thomas and Christoph and I said, someone's going to ask about this. And just don't mention it. I was like, okay. But what it was for, it was back in the bad old days of Flash, and it was to do with JavaScript and everything else. And talking with Thomas earlier, I was just saying, but I know not to touch it because it's a self-destruct. If I click it, things break. So why is it there? And he was like, good question. Perhaps we should take it out. But it was for the bad old, the good old bad old days of Flash. So, shouldn't be there. We're going to hide it.
Ignore it.
That's it. I can't be blamed. I can hide it. So yeah, good stuff. Right, as I say, then, do we? I can't speak now. Do we have any more questions or?
No, that's it. I think we've got them all. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. If that's the case then from me until next week, which is going to be Pano2VR 101 image pop-ups, I will say farewell and see you next week.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for joining us, and thanks for coming onto the Zoom platform. I hope everyone had a good experience here today. And we'll see you next week. And tomorrow there's a webinar on using JavaScript, so we might see you also tomorrow. Okay. So bye from me.
And goodbye from me. Goodbye.